Today we are talking about navigating power dynamics and what are some things that we can do to become more powerful women. I'm just kidding. What are some of the things that we can do to understand what the dynamics are and how to shift them? And one of the things that we were talking about backstage was this is not a conversation for us. This is a conversation for you guys. And we want to make sure that we're giving you tactical information. So at the end in the Q&A, we're going to reserve 15 minutes, and we'd love you to think about some things that will help you specifically that we can answer. So, my lovely panelists, what should the power dynamic be in the ideal world? And what does it look like now?
Thanks, Raina. Do you want to introduce us really quickly first so the audience knows who we are?
Yeah, sure. I think Catherine did a little, but...
oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
No problem. We have two self-realized women here who have had a long career and have done a lot of good in their career. I need to just... Pamela Rice is OnDeck's Senior Vice President of Technology since March 2014. She was an early senior technologist and led credit product development, which was acquired by PayPal. And she is also very passionate about gender parity through conversations, action, and support. And Ekaterina Walter has led strategic marketing and innovation for Fortune 500 brands such as Intel and Accenture. And Branderati is a startup that she co-founded, which was acquired, and she now serves as a global evangelist. And she is an international speaker and author of the Wall Street Journal bestseller Think Like Zuck and The Power of Visual Storytelling.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now that we all know who each other is, back to the question.
Yeah.
So what are the dynamics of women in power? What does that mean?
So thanks for introducing us. I think it's important for the audience to hear kind of some of our background and realize that both E and myself have been in business for a while. And that's important because over the last 20 years, I think the picture of power is transforming. And there's so many books written about the power of the Jack Welch and the GE model and the brashness that comes into the boardroom, and really the boldness of the voice is equivalent to who's going to be the next leader. And that picture is changing in remarkable ways. And the real picture of power today looks like attributes that encompass many of the best of the attributes that women bring to the table: compassion, listening, being able to really help others to be successful and not just look out for yourselves. So these dynamics, these attributes are things that I hope that we all recognize are things that can take us into leadership just as much as some of the elements or the pictures of the past. We're defining leadership of the past.
Yeah, that's great.
What's the vision look like for you? What does it mean, power dynamics, for you?
I don't actually think that it's about the external power. I always think power, it's a title. It is a particular status that you reach. It's maybe even the car you drive is a symbol of a power. I actually disagree with that. I think power is the ability to be in a situation where people perceive you as a value add, as somebody who can help drive decision to make something better, whether it's for your family in your personal life or whether it's building a business. And so I think the women's role in that is still pretty minimal, just like we discussed earlier, and a lot of women before us said. And I think it is up to us to sort of create that power. So a lot of times for me, when I hear power, I think it's more for us women to have a power from within, to actually know that we can do it, we can be anything we want, and we can get ourselves into that situation, and obviously sort of rally people around us to help us get there.
Mm-hmm. I have to quote Catherine Posey's mom, who says that the door to power only opens from within. So that's something that takes a long time, and I think there's been probably some incremental times in your life that you've you've seen this shift. You didn't become a powerful woman overnight, right? What were some of the things that led you to more self-realization? For me, I can give you an example. I think it was the first time I realized that I was smarter than my boss. And I said, wait a minute, this is like a disruption in the matrix. I think that the world could be different. And from there on, we move forward.
Yeah, well, I do agree. I think all of us experience that, where you just start on your career and you think, how am I going to get to where I want to go? And whatever that goal is. And I think the key to realizing that change will happen is taking those little steps. Everybody says, oh, big transformation, big change in business. The reality is people resist to change. Even if you feel like you're really open to it, there's still a little bit of that. Remember those butterflies when you take a new job? Mm-hmm. So I think, there's a lot of stories where I had those butterflies, and I think one of the biggest things that I can tell the audience, especially the students in the audience, I know we have a lot of you guys here listening to us. I think it's first realizing it's small steps. No goal is big enough or small enough. It's just, it's really planning out and saying, what are the 50, 100, I don't care how many steps it is that takes you where you want to go. And also understanding who are the people who can help you get there. There's no such thing as a self-made man, period. It's just nothing like that exists. So building relationships that can help you get there is critical. And then also having the patience to say, look, it's just small steps and it's all hard work, but I'm going to get there. And so every time you take on next challenge, or you're about to meet a new person who might impact your life, you gotta have those butterflies in your stomach, and it's up to you to say, that is the right decision. Because if I would be making the next step, and you wouldn't be worried about it or have those butterflies, it is a wrong step for you, because you're going down versus up. You're going toward comfortable, to what you already know, versus taking on new challenges, learning new things, and growing yourself as a person, as a professional. Pamela, what do you think?
I think that's very well said. For my own story, there are two significant awarenesses that I had that over the last 20 years, and one was really more individually focused, and one was really more broadly focused. And on the individual side, I come from a tech background. I coded. When I was 8, I was building radios. I was always the odd child. I was always the left brain nerd, and which was fine. I kind of embraced that. I loved it, and I think that the other side of that, I was also always called bossy. I was always called pushy. I was always called too aggressive, always called too bold. And there was this time about 15 years ago that I got to be very, very comfortable with that. And I drew a line in the sand, and I said, those statements are made from people who most likely have some internal biases, and I will not accept them innately. I will not let them define me. And I will keep my own picture. And I will keep my own picture of what I am, and how bold I want to be, how bossy I want to be, and how aggressive I want to be. Because in 20 years from that time, most likely those things will not be thought of in that same light. Right. And then the second big awareness that occurred, relatively about the same time, really was one that it's not just about me. Like, I can do many, many things. I can be as bold and as badass as I want, but if I tolerate scenarios at the workplace that are harmful to really embracing women, then I'm not doing anything right. And so it became a series of steps where I would stop a conversation mid-flight. I would report people. I had reported people 3 levels up from me for doing things that were making the workplace a very hard place for women to work. And to continue that thread, you really have to focus on diversity. And Sarah had a lot of really good points that I think is helpful for all companies. But you have to focus on it. You have to embrace it. And for my own life, I kind of feel like it's not just about embracing these things. If you're not actively supporting it, you're against it. And I think it's a mind shift at this point, that I'm not willing to wait 50 to 70 years to get to gender parity. I want to get there now.
Yeah. And It's also, right, diversity. I mean, the U.S. is different as far as the country. It's like a melting pot, right? So it's not just gender diversity and racial diversity. I mean, I'm an immigrant. I came from a different country where I grew up. So I actually grew up in Russia, right? And so, with language being my second language and everything else, so there's a lot more to diversity than that. But one thing that you said about aggressiveness really resonates with me, because everybody would say, oh, she's way too aggressive. She's this and that. Like every year there would be somebody who would say, well, it's just she needs to mellow out. Or my most favorite is, oh my God, you're so passionate about this. This is giving me a headache. And I'm like, go get a Tylenol. Because the reality is a lot of us women were so passionate and we're not allowed to be passionate. Did you notice? How many of you noticed that in the workplace we're not allowed to be passionate? Right? There you go. And I actually, Medium is here. I love Medium. I blog there not as often as I like, but one of the posts I wrote about is like, stop shutting me up. Stop telling me. Stop trying to define me. I am passionate. And you know what? If you have a headache or you disagree with it, let's have a conversation. But I'm not gonna be my usual passionate, overflowing, really obnoxious self, because what that does for most folks and women around me is that energizes them, right? And so the whole point of aggressiveness, too aggressive, too passionate, too this, too that, there's no such thing as too, right? There's right levels and right amounts so we can inspire others around us. So that's one thing I noticed, especially in corporate America, that happens often, less on the startup side, but
tone it down.
Yeah.
Where's the mute button?
Yeah. Where's the off button? I don't have one. Sorry, you're gonna have to deal with it.
That's really well said. I think those are all great points, and the direction that you've sort of taken the conversation now is, what can we do? What are some of the tactics? Because Pamela, you said, you're not going to stand for these kind of conversations. Letting these conversations happen, in fact, is damaging to the entire movement. So what are some of the small ways that you can interject and interact in these super awkward situations that you're not maybe used to, but how do you stand up for this?
I think there are so many books written about this that I couldn't begin to tell all of the wonderful steps that many people have described. But some of the things that I continue to watch out for myself are to be aware of the conversation, be aware of how we are talking about people. If you are introducing a woman, make sure that you support that language as this woman is leading this effort and not she is supporting this effort. Small little verb changes like that are very, very pivotal. Making sure that you actually stop conversations or block activities or actions by others when they're harmful to the workplace or to people at work. And I heard somebody say earlier, when you're in 10% of the workforce and then 90% is men, of course it's going to be a male-dominated environment. But I think there's an element of actually bringing trust and bringing compassion and bringing respect to the workplace that should be a standard table stakes thing, regardless of the gender diversity. And I think that's something we don't push enough. We kind of tolerate this behavior that is quite frankly unacceptable. There are other activities when you get a little bit higher and you get to be a hiring manager that you absolutely look for and open the door long enough to make sure you get equal representation from everybody, and that even you yourself are not biasing who should fill that role. So I think there's many steps that you could take, and I think individually, speaking up, letting your voice be heard, being very, very brave, and this didn't come naturally to me as an extroverted introvert. I have to speak up and make sure that my point is heard and that I've got facts. These are all things that I help us as women, but also help other women and help the environment. So, but those are a few of the things that I do.
Awesome.
Agreed. I can add a little bit to that, and I think you should chime in too. I think you have experience in that area as well. But I think these are some of the things that I've done is, and one of the bigger ones is, I don't care if I look different or I sound different, right? So I worked at Intel for a while, great career, fantastic company, a lot of times worked with men, which for me in my career it was a good thing. Some women might have different experiences, but one of the things that a culture like, you know, Intel's or, I don't know, Google, tech companies, right, have is engineers, it's the culture of engineers, you know, they feel like they come to work in flip-flops and shorts and that's the standard. I never allowed myself to do that. I always dressed to the nines, and people would start commenting, oh, you always dress like you're coming to the interview. It's my job, I respect my job, and you know what, I don't want to look the same as everybody else. It always drew attention. People knew who I was before I even walked into a meeting, and you know, within a corporate environment, you change your job every 2 years if you want to learn and grow. And so people know you, and you stand out, and you don't blend in. So one of the things, don't blend in. Second is take charge. Every time you walk in the room, if there isn't a high-level executive and it's his or her room where they have a specific spot that they always sit in, if it's any other room, it's a fair game. I dare you, take the leading spot. Take the spot at the head of the table. Don't take a corner chair that isn't even at the table. Take that spot. People notice. They think about you differently. They talk to you differently. They understand. They see that you're an expert in your field. And I know, you know, you ladies love to learn probably as much as I do. So even if you aren't, you're going to, you know, learn and do a really good job, just as good as men. So, you know what? Do dare to look different, be different. And the other thing, too, is help women around you. We have all these executives that say, oh, yeah, I love mentoring women. And you try to get on their calendar for half an hour, and they toss you around for half a year, and then they finally say, yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't. Yes, you have half an hour for somebody who's aggressive, who wants to help you grow the company. Damn right you have that time. So, you know, I think men are so great at sticking together. They go golfing, they go to, you know, they watch sports together, they do all these things. Why can't we? So I'm telling you right now, if any one of you wants any of my time and wants to meet up and get my opinion on whatever it is, whether it's startup you're looking, you know, to start, or you already started, whether you're a student, come get me. I have plenty of business cards. I will give you my time. And also the students who are looking for jobs, I have friends looking for jobs. Sprinkler is an amazing environment to work. I will look and consider every single one of your resumes, especially if you're kick-ass women and you really want to change the world. I am absolutely available. I'm going to reply to every single one of your emails. And the thing is, we women, we have that idea of sense of generosity, and that's how we build our network. That's how we become successful. I built my huge network on generosity, and that's why, you know, my book is on the bestseller list, not because I'm the smartest person out there. It's because I have a network who I worked years to develop and help. So help each other, find time for others, and just, you know, and just don't be dare to be different.
Yeah, I'd like to add just one more thing, and this is just so powerful. I love what you said. I think that another important thing is don't be afraid to leave when you realize that the environment is not quite working out for women.
Don't take any shit.
And that's one of the main reasons why.
I'm going to translate for you, Pamela.
She puts more oomph into my words. But, you know, that's one of the main reasons I went to OnDeck. They actually do value women, and they make a point of making sure that they have an equal representation of women leaders. And, you know, we have a strong group that really focuses on women and leadership and women on OnDeck, and helping technologists really look at that and focus on that and supporting women. So make sure that you're in the right environment. Make sure if it's not for you, you're not afraid to leave.
Yeah.
What about you?
There are great environments to be in, and you get to choose, and there are more every day.
Exactly. Right. Especially businesses led by women like yours.
Yes, and we are also hiring, so please come talk to me. I need more ladies on my team. But aside from everyone getting jobs at the end of this conversation, one of the points that you made, which was, you know, sticking to your true self. I know we talked about this before. How do you sort of stay to be an authentic leader if all of the management books that have been written that we've seen are, you know, the old white dude in the suit, and, you know, his leadership and management style doesn't work for you, and also breeds what I call the disease of American corporate world, which is terrible management. Everyone has had a bad boss. But I think women now have a way of making their own role models in a whole new model that is not part of this bad management world. It is, I mean, we can talk about holacracy, or we can just talk about doing it your own way. But how have you guys sort of done that in your career?
I've had to learn how to be comfortable with showing teeth in a way that really is my own way, and not a way that is defined by men, by being loud or being aggressive. Showing teeth and having data and being firm and at the same time being open to hearing other person's perspective is actually a very valuable asset. Whether you're just starting off coding, or whether you're in a management role, or whether you're in the senior C-suite. So, I think it always plays out in these aggressive fronts when there is conflict. How do you handle conflict? And you've got to practice this, because they don't teach you in school how to handle conflict. What they teach you is you've got an easy path, and everything goes nicely, and everybody gets along, and the product is delivered, and hooray, everybody's rich and famous. And that's not how it plays out. It plays out that you have day-to-day conflict, and that how you address that conflict, it really describes you as a leader. It describes you as a woman in the workplace. And embracing your true self means knowing how you feel comfortable in handling conflict, and being able to be very honest with yourself about that. You don't want to be the Jack Welch of the world. That doesn't work. That won't even work for men. So find that sweet spot for yourself and move forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's what you said is listening, very, very key. Also, embrace open feedback. There's a lot of people, and unfortunately, in my case, more so women than men that I worked with, who said, we are so open, and you let me give you my feedback, and I'm so open to mine. You give them feedback, they get emotionally shut down, they're pissed at you for the rest of their career, and you're the worst person ever. So I tell women, you gotta do you. There is you inside that you gotta be you. You don't wanna be anybody else. That said, there's a little bit of flexibility. You know how smart businessmen, they have a strategy, they stick to it, but strategy could evolve with time. So can we. I think it's important to embrace feedback that you feel is fair. Work on it every single day. I mean, there are some people I work with, they don't, when you get in the room and you go, okay, I'm here to do this, let's get this done, and so half an hour, we're going to have 15 minutes, let's get things moving. They're not comfortable with that potential pace, right? Or they're introverts, so I have to subdue my aggressiveness a bit. I'm not less authentic because of that, but I adjust to their communication style. So do listen to feedback and listen to what people say, and you're right. It's conflict resolution is so critical, because you can get into a room and you could say, what the heck? Or you can get in the room and say, I'm sorry, let me just help me understand, is there a reason why we're going with this approach versus that approach? Because I have this data here, and you're right, just be very logical, have data, have expertise in who you are and what you do, and present that in a very calm way. I mean, it's so easy to get emotional, but you want to make sure that if there's a conflict, you resolve it right away, and you sit down and you talk to people, you listen to them, you give them your opinion. There is no situation that cannot be solved, and no problem that cannot be overcome. I mean, I swear to God, I have never, ever met a problem that you can't solve yet.
Yes.
And I may just be a bit arrogant about it, but that's just the reality. I feel like if you sit down and you talk to people about it, you bring the right perspectives, you bring more people in who maybe have knowledge that you lack, that's what's critical. And if you're able to do you, but have a bit of that flexibility to bring other people along and other diverse perspectives, I think you're going to do extremely, extremely well, and you're going to build relationships for life that are absolutely mind-blowing, that will pay off 5 years down the road, 10, 15. You never know.
And hang on one second. Speaking of the data, we had one slide of data. I don't know if we can get that screen down, but maybe they can work on it just to show. Oh, you guys have it over there. Can we get it up here on our screens as well? But one of the other points you made is that relationships are everything. And none of the progress that we see, and I know these numbers are still pathetically low, but they are progress from 20 years ago. And none of this progress, I don't think, was possible without relationships and building on relationships and moving it together. So just looking at some of these numbers, particularly Fortune 500 CEOs, which is at a whopping 5.2%. Well done, USA. What do you think are the pathways that we can tell our audience about how to increase that number in a faster time frame than 50 years?
So I think we can look at other countries that are doing this actually very well right now, Sweden being one of them. And the way that Sweden is moving forward, they're actually doing things as aggressive as setting quotas and making sure that from a government standpoint that they draw lines in the sand, and those lines have to be met. And the U.S. isn't quite there yet. We're not quite at the point where the government is taking that aggressive of a stance. But I think the stats that we've read, if India had gender parity, their GDP would rise by 10 to 15%. That's just a no-brainer that a country would want to get there. And I think, we have to become more aggressive, and then that means we have to start setting definitive quantitative goals for ourselves at the company and at the governmental level.
Well, my opinion on this is we have to take charge. So when I was working at Intel, I loved, one of the things I really loved about it is we had this definition of manage your manager. So what that means is every time you have one-on-one conversation with your manager, which is regularly, you set the agenda, you set the pace of conversation, and you also bring sort of your own initiative and views on what else needs to be done. Not just what they ask you to go do, but what else needs to be done. I'm extremely aggressive in when I see change, I jump on it. Why? Because change is the time when power shifts, when, internally when organizational structure shifts, when there is opportunity for you to manage teams or do something different. It's amazing. To me, I just really thrive on it because it's mind-blowing, because there is all these white spaces that haven't been actually taken upon by anybody to really build. And I'm a builder. I love to build. So, manage your own career and stand up. So if somebody has an opportunity for you, and if the opportunity doesn't exist, take on it, consider at least. If opportunity doesn't exist, create it for yourself. Come back to your management and couple levels above them. I don't care who you talk to, but come back with a plan, with a strategy, put in time, show people that, don't just raise your hand and say, oh, I am up for it, or I would love to do it. A lot of people do that. What people don't do is say, look, I'd love to do it, and by the way, I came to you with, here's my strategy, here's my plan, here's the support I'm going to need. I will take on that. I'm passionate about that, and here's what I'm going to do for you and for your organization going forward. So I feel like one thing that we don't do is we don't raise our hands. I mean, there's been times where I reached out to some industry events that I wanted to go to, but I wanted to go to as a speaker because my company wouldn't sponsor just attendance, but as a speaker you can get additional things, right? So so I reached out proactively and said, I always admired your event, I've always followed it on Twitter, etc. Would you consider my expertise in that? Nobody's going to bring you things on a platter, and I think Pamela, what you talked about, it's not just, well, this is a quota and we have to have that. So that's like a mandate, but there's other sort of ways before that mandate comes from the top to say, look, this is my path, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to take charge of my own life, of my own destiny. And you know what? Look for people who can help you get there. Look for the right folks who can help you shape the path that you want. And sometimes it's not going to be this way, but it's going to be that way. But you're going to get there at the end of the day. And by the way, as you're getting there, and maybe that's not the ideal path for you, you're going to learn so much more, and you're going to meet people that are going to help you, with that change, and also help other women too. I mean, I mentor a lot of women, and I see that they are struggling because either a bad boss, right, or a situation where they don't see clearly the path because they're still pretty young. And I get in, I'm like, okay, it seems like you're passionate about this. How about that? There's org change coming. Go get your proposal and shape your path. And instead of leaving that organization, we retain really smart women because there's somebody who jumps in and proactively says, look, I love working with you, you're fantastic. Let me help you shape it, right? I mean, I think, and if you're an introvert, build a support system. People who hold you accountable, who will push you, like me. I'll push you to the edge and make you jump because I know it's good for your career. And there's been times, and including my sister, they're like, we'll never get this management job. They have all their favorites right here that are applying. They love these people. There's no way I'm going to make it. And they made it just because somebody pushed them off that ledge. So it's not always a bad thing to jump.
Yeah.
So if I could just follow up with that, he's absolutely right. It's not just a top-down mandate. It's a bottoms-up. You've got to take charge of your own life. And I think, the basic message is don't give up. Raise your hand. Be heard. Believe in yourself. And don't give up. You've got to push your passion. You've got to realize that there are biases out there. And it's not your job to overcome all of them, but if you don't believe in yourself and push it forward, things won't change as fast as we need them to.
Well, there's been times where I'm like, yeah, I'm right here, and I look like a total idiot, but I got the project, and I learned something new, and I'm like, come on, I'm right here. I mean, do that. It's not a bad thing. You don't always have to be proper and reserved, and just use your passion, right?
And if that's not your style, that's not your style. You can still do it. You can do it through whispering. You can do it through a quiet conversation in the hallway. There are always ways to get these things done. So I'd like to open up the floor to questions. Yes? Do we have mic runners? Nope. Okay. Well, we'll start here, and because I can hear you. So.
I would like to hear more about non-traditional organizational structures as a way of disrupting traditional power dynamics that exist within companies. So you earlier mentioned holacracy, and I work for an organization. I lead our diversity initiatives and our diversity team, and I work for an organization called Death Camp, and we adopted holacracy a little over a year ago, and the result of that. So we adopted holacracy a little over a year ago, and the result of that was that we went from close to no women leaders in our company to around 40% leadership.
Interesting.
And part of it is that holacracy itself asks for a different type of leadership. So rather than a traditional command and control, it's a more facilitative type of leadership. And it's also because holacracy values every voice in the room, and not one particular voice over another. And what we've seen is this extreme rebellion against it, specifically from men and white people within the organization. And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, because you mentioned it. So.
Sure. So the question, in case you guys didn't hear, was wanting to hear more about different alternative styles of management and leadership, holacracy being one of them. I mean, sometimes we don't have a name for it, right? Because we're kind of making it up as we go along. It's great that holacracy was named and now it's a thing and we can talk about it, but it's a lot of it is just sort of feeling it out and seeing how you're going. And if the organization is top-down, command and control, there are always loopholes. I exist in loopholes. I think it's part of my culture, being Indian. There's this whole theory of Jugaad, which means loophole, basically.
Same in Russia, by the way.
So you just kind of have to find... if there's not a clear path to getting something done that you want to see done, you find the other people who also want to get it done, and you work with them in these new ways. Do you guys have anything?
Zappos, right? Zappos just, last year they announced that they're done with hierarchy. I mean, the whole idea is everybody, and that's one of my favorite companies because I write a lot about leadership and culture, and I think they're amazing. But that's the company they said, we don't care, about levels. Each one of you is responsible for success of this company. So whether you're filling the gaps or you're raising your hand to do a different role, the one thing in corporate America, what I found is everybody asks you on the resume, right? What are the teams that you manage? How many people you manage? That's a totally wrong way to look at it. The hardest thing to do in leadership, and by the way, you can be a leader, you can lead people without any title. I've done it, I've seen it done before. Some of the people that I admire, they haven't had teams they led. But some of the hardest things to do is what I call matrix leadership. And what that means is impacting and influencing the hearts and minds of people who actually have to make decisions, especially if you work with different brands, business units, geographies, and they have the power, they have the budget, impacting their minds to make the right decision for the company as a whole or for the strategy that you're trying to put in place. The hardest thing to do. So, you know, it's easy to say when people ask you, why should I do it? Well, because you work for me and I said so. It's same with parenting, right? Yeah. I mean, I have a 5-year-old, so I totally get the startups like babies concept. And, but the reality is, it's easy to say that, but it's not leadership. That's even crappy management. That doesn't even come close to definition of leadership.
Yeah,
right?
but
it's hard to impact people.
Different. Anytime people feel the power shift changing, they are going to react. And that's a good thing, because that discomfort means that you are changing something.
Well, you know what they say about innovation: if you don't piss somebody off, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So that's how it goes.
Congratulations on pissing people off.
Do it consistently.
Next question.
Can I just add to that really
yes,
fast?
Yes.
I think there is this notion of hierarchies being this quote-unquote bad thing, but I think it's really how they're implemented. And many of you are probably software developers, and you take part in maybe agile software development, and that really embraces the power of the team to be in charge, to make decisions on how it's implemented, on how it's coded, on how it's delivered. And you know, I think what I've seen, and more specifically at OnDeck, what we do is really have this upside-down hierarchy. And the teams are really every bit as powerful to making things happen and getting shit done and making sure that they're responsible, as are the managers or the directors or senior directors. It's really, you know, how you implement this thing. And it's really, it starts at the top with a notion that, you know, the people that are doing the work are as important, and their responsibilities and their insights are highly valued. And that's a company culture thing. That's not how you organize people. So I just want to put that out there, that you have to look a little bit deeper than just the hierarchy.
Next question. Yes, great. Someone's got the mic.
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm from Twilio, and we are hiring fantastic women, so come find me later. And second, this panel
jobs for everybody.
Yeah, this panel is on fire. I love it. And I wanted to ask about the statement of the power of a male ally, and one, whether you agree with that statement, and two, share a story when that has been a positive influence or a situation to advancing either a personal issue that you have, a lot of the issues we were talking about here, or it's helped you advance in your career.
Great question, by the way.
I worked with a lot of men. I never had a problem or deep-seated problems with men. I actually love working with them because they understand my aggressive and straightforward style. I get in the room, I get shit done, I get out. I don't need to, like, I'll talk to you about your family and friends, and I always connect with people on a personal level. But at the end of the day, you know, I think that style, and it's not everybody's style, I think really resonates. And so, you know, having male allies is extremely important. Having relationships, I don't care whether they're male or female, any relationships, and cultivating and building it. I mean, in that way, I don't see it, you know, as diverse, but I think everybody has a communication style to connect with maybe women and men differently, connect with different cultures. I mean, I worked with all kinds of cultures around the world in my global roles, and it does take a little bit of adjusting, but every time, if you listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to respond, you're going to build best relationships, and those relationships, no matter whether it's male or female ally, will get you to where you need to go. And guys are very open. They do want to do it, especially if you open their eyes and say, I actually noticed your interaction with that woman, you're treating her in a little bit of a biased way. Let me just give you that feedback. A lot of them will, instead of shutting down, say, oh crap, you're right. It's just, I don't know why I did that, right? I think it's also raising awareness on your side if you're not afraid to speak up.
Calling it out.
Just to echo E's sentiments, I think it's very, very important for us to realize we're only one half of the population. We're a great half, but we're only one half. We don't have the eyes. We weren't raised with certain aspects of how a male is raised. And we need to be very, very open to getting that other feedback and understanding that other perspective to help us to really address a total to address a total problem and address it in a way that solves it generically. So I think having men as allies is as important as having women as allies, and that's important because that bond and that relationship helps us get to a cause that's a cause for all of us. So I don't think anybody should approach it as having a male ally to further my career. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think it's much broader. How do we address a problem? How do we look and see all perspectives? And how do we make sure that we have a relationship that will help all of us? So that's, I think, a different way of looking at it.
And also, how do we lead by example? What you said in your career, what you did, right? You lead by example. If you just shut up and not say anything, you're only making the problem worse. Right. But speak up, even if it's not necessarily the best thing for you in your career. Speak up to raise that awareness in people. I think it's a very strong, powerful statement. Now, I've been shut down a lot of times, I have to tell you, but still. But I mean, I still believe in doing that, right?
Yeah, I do.
It's so critical.
And I think you have to be positive too. I think that's a big thing. These are kind of depressing statistics, and we have to maintain a positive approach and make sure that we are approachable with some of this stuff, because we can't be I think the banters for just all bad news and criticizing. We have to realize that these are cultural biases. They're ingrained in us and others, and be positive about the change.
Right. I agree.
Next question. Who's got the mic?
Who's got the mic? Oh.
Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm here with my colleague Josephine. We're under Esmer Ventures. It's a startup managing apps, just like everyone else. Anyway, our customers are writing, so Pamela, you mentioned you're bossy, but you embrace it kind of thing, and I think that's kind of a lot of us in here. We want to stand up there, we want to lead, but it's kind of hard sometimes because there's the side of being a woman. People see women as I don't. Sometimes with the biases, I don't have to listen to them. It comes off sometimes as annoying. So we had a question, part of our language, but I would like Josephine to say it.
The question is basically, what is the fine line between being bossy and being a boss? Like a boss-ass bitch, gets shit done?
Because there's a difference between being a boss-ass bitch or a bitch-ass boss,
Oh, I don't know. It's
Pamela.
So I think the line is, I think everybody shows up in different ways, and if you can balance the equation where you show teeth and you are very insightful about where we need to go and how to get there, but at the same time you're very compassionate with people and you listen and you take feedback and you take criticism. All of these aspects are really ways where we can still push our power button and yet do so in a way that it incorporates those aspects that really are what true leaders are. And so this is less about trying to be a guy, trying to be a man, trying to fit that mold. This is changing the picture of power, and this is embracing your true self. And it's not a one or the other, but it's really a fine line between really being a respectful human being and being having an assertive voice.
And sometimes you ignore critique, right? I mean, you take it to heart, but if somebody said, "Oh, you've been a bit bitchy in the meeting," it's because they needed to hear it, and I can live with that, but not bitch it to where you insult people.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I think there's something to be said about boundaries and holding your boundary and just making sure that people know that when they've crossed you. And that they won't do it again once they know. Just you have to do it once. Last question. Yes.
Hello? Okay. So my name is Caroline. I'm the CEO of Tokaboka, and we make apps for kids. And I'm I'm sort of leading all the teams at the moment. But so I have this, we're a Swedish company, so we're very flat organized and all of those sort of things. I have a nightmare almost, and it's, we have this, I'm much more, I raise my hand, I'm sometimes too loud, all of these sort of things. My nightmare is that I don't see the women. So that in, I don't know, X years, I will get the feedback of like, hey, we were all these women, you had these diverse teams, but the men, they raise their hands more, and you're very passionate, so you're always like on the next track, and you know, your scope of seeing things was like all of the people raising their hands, and by almost gender to a large extent, or just by the way people are, more men will be the ones raising their hands, being more aggressive, and I will see them more. So what do I do?
Well, I think it goes back to leading right? I think it goes back to if you as a leader or a moderator, you don't have to be a leader in the room, you could be moderator of the meeting, know who the people are, and you call them on people who are quiet, but you know they have expertise on something. I mean, everybody says, well, you know, the panels that you speak on, they're so much easier because you don't have to prepare PowerPoint and this and that. I actually say it's hard because we met multiple times, right? And I put together talking points. I want to make sure you guys get the best value out of it. When you moderate your life and your career, and hell, even your marriage, I can go as far as that, right? You need to guide the teams and people in the way where you do give an opportunity for people to speak up. And if they're really, really introverted, make sure they speak up outside. So when you lead your project, you take their consideration as well. And I think when you lead by example, people will learn. So if a couple of meetings in a row, you're going to say, okay, well, we have Jane online. I know she's been quiet, but Jane, your expertise is here. Can you give us a couple of words and sort of get them to speak up? Other people will pick up your habits and your behaviors. That's why it's so important. I don't care whether you're boss, but what you need to ensure is that you are that mentor to those people in direct or indirect ways. And if you do that, people will pick up on it. They'll be, introverts will be grateful to you, and others will say, wow, I love how she runs her meetings and brings people in. I should do that more often. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Great.
Some of the ways that I also manage a couple of teams, and there's women that lead their own teams, and there's men that lead their own teams. And I've noticed that there are times when more men raise their hands to take on special projects or initiatives. In those cases, what I do is I actually call on women, specific women, to lead initiatives and give them responsibilities. And I may have talked to them about it beforehand, but it's just a different way of reaching out. It doesn't follow the same kind of path where the loudest voice wins. But you have to be willing to take another step, maybe, to get to that means and to help that woman to feel like she's supported through that effort.
Yeah, those hallway conversations and office hours and things like that are other ways of letting people come and talk to you instead of calling them out in a public situation. Sometimes that doesn't work. But that is all the time we have. I hope that this was valuable for you, and come talk to us afterwards. Thank you.